So I hope this video finds everybody in the best of health. I hope everybody's well. I decided to obviously take advantage of the fact that it was a good day to again come out into nature. What I wanted to do today was to talk about when a knowing emerges from a place of not knowing. The reasoning for this video really is because I'm getting this question asked to me constantly by a lot of people now that, you know, I feel something's changing, but I'm not quite sure what it is that's actually changing. And, you know, I'd really like to know what's actually happening to me so that I can make some sort of a plan and understand what's going on. So, you know, I've kind of answered it as best I can, but what I want to do is really just put it into a video and kind of share some of my own personal experiences, talk about some of the things that happen along the way as well, and what we can actually kind of do to really just allow the process to happen smoothly. We're creatures of habit. We like to know that one day is always going to be like the next. And when something like our world just being pulled apart happens, it can be quite a scary place. When we start moving more in alignment with what we actually are, sometimes there are periods when we don't actually know what's going to happen next. And that really calls for us to really be trusting of the process and to be really patient, which can be hard sometimes if you're really impatient. And when we're in this place of not knowing, it's pretty much contrary to everything that we've been conditioned to do. So we're like I said, we're creatures of habit. We want to know what's going to happen next. We also, you know, like to have our plans in place. And what you find is when we're in this place where everything is just transitioning or changing, or the energy is doing whatever it wants to do, all of those, you know, best laid plans just tend to fly out the window. And that can bring up all sorts of emotions. It can bring up a lot of fear. It can bring up a lot of confusion. And it was something that happened to me a couple of months ago where I was literally just getting up and thinking, what's going on? I don't understand. I knew something was changing, but I wasn't quite sure. I found that over time, what it was asking me to do really was to be more trusting of the process and to realize that everything would always work out. You know, recently I've had this beautiful thing happen whereby there's always a delay in what I'm trying to do, and yet it always works out better than if I'd had something happen at the time I wanted it to happen. And what that's really done is just deepened my trust in whatever's actually happening, and I found myself becoming calmer and much more relaxed about things. And the one that's really kind of helped me is becoming a lot more patient about what's actually happening, whereas before I was one of those people who really needed to know what was going to happen next and wanted to almost micromanage my day. It is really ultimately about letting go and getting us to prise our fingers off life and stop being so controlling. And when we allow whatever's happening to happen, what we find is over time a knowing starts emerging. So again, to give a real life example, at this moment in time my work seems to be transitioning. So I'm back in Manchester, and I've noticed that I'm meeting a lot of young Sufis. I'm going to a lot more Sufi gatherings, and I'm finding that the way I communicate this when I'm speaking to these people is different to how I would say if I was doing a non-dual meeting. And that did bring up a bit of concern, but I now realize that, okay, maybe just by trusting whatever happens, that the relevant words will be said, the relevant communication and the relevant meetings will happen as and how. And again, what I found is sometimes in that place of not knowing, a knowing starts emerging, and I start going, oh, okay, I understand what I've got to do here, or okay, this makes sense. But what I find is rather than being under my control, whereby I'm like, okay, great, I've got this knowing, oh, I need some more information, I need some more information, or more information. What I find is that life just brings out the information and hands it to me as and how I need to. Like I said, there seems to be this really interesting thing going on with delays at the moment, and yet what I find is that delay inevitably puts me ahead. Had I, you know, a lot more ahead than had I decided to, you know, try and do something myself. And again, that's led to further surrender and further letting go. And in that, we start realizing more and more that it really isn't about us. We start realizing more and more that it's completely impersonal to us, that the body, mind, the story doesn't really hold here. And the story is really just there just to have whatever needs to happen. You know, things are happening to this character called Zahir Khan. He's trying to figure it out. He's finding he's having to become more patient. He's finding he's having to be a lot less controlling. He's having to let go. He's finding that his plans are going all over the place, and he's finding that from one day to another, things are just happening as they're happening, as crazy as that sounds. However, in that there seems to be more of a trusting, there seems to be more of a movement. And yet sometimes from that not knowing, a knowing emerges, and it's whether we can be patient and allow that knowing to come up as and how, because then we realize how we're going to do certain things, and we realize that life is this kind of process that's constantly happening, in which we are constantly revealing ourselves to ourselves. That requires us to be trusting, that requires us to be patient. But in that trusting and in that patience, what you find is there's almost an expanse, and you find that you're not as concerned or as worried about situations as you used to be. And invariably this then leads to, guess what, the situation working out better than you need it to. So like I said, there's this beautiful thing with delays going on, and I'm finding that more and more I just seem to find that it's not even almost, it's effortless. So really, if we were to just let go of trying to understand this vastness, this singularity, this consciousness, this intimacy, God, whatever you want to call it, and allow ourselves to let go and let God, what we'd find is we'd always be where we need to be. So I think that's really what I want to say about that. There are ideas, like I said, from this not knowing, knowing is emerging. I'm hoping to record a video on boundaries and maybe write an article about balance as well, because I'm finding that word is coming up a lot in discussions. So I hope you found that informative. The channel is growing, so if you haven't subscribed and you've really enjoyed what you've heard today, please do subscribe to the channel. And if there's any ideas for videos, which the list is now slowly growing, and I'm starting to kind of work my way through it, please do drop me a message and we can look to do a video about that. But thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day wherever you are.